Welcome to another Warzone tip video. I see people asking about my updated loadouts every now and then. I feel like everyone makes loadout videos, but I'm happy to share how mine have changed. It's been several months since the last time, so let's cover some ways that the meta's evolved. And I'll start by running through the list of obscure tips that I've been building over time, always trying to find weird ideas or pointers that could come in handy. Of course, because I waited so long, some of them have become pretty obvious, and some were never useful. Like, did you know that decoy grenades can scope glint at you? They're not just about the sound or the dot on the map. Does that matter? Should you put decoys on your loadout? Well, no. And who am I to be giving Warzone tips? Well, in raw skill, I don't think I'm that good. But I am in the top 1% of win rate, whatever that means. People ask about seeing my stats, too, so sure, I can go through that at the end. A couple basic Recon flag tips you maybe haven't thought about or tried. If you're on a flag, as the contract timer runs out, it will pause and let you finish as long as you stay on the flag. So even if the contract time is almost out, it isn't impossible to finish. As long as you can get there in time, you're good. And part 2, if a circle's about to finish closing and you're on a Recon contract, you should make sure you hold off on capping it until the next circle is revealed. Otherwise, you really wasted that intel, which is the main reason you do a Recon, because the money's pretty terrible. Next, a couple little things with pinging and general awareness. If you see an out-of-place vehicle on the map, like maybe a helicopter parked on some campy sniper spot, or a vehicle pulled up to a buy station, it can be helpful to keep it pinged, since if enemies hop into it, it'll automatically alert you with the enemy ping sound. It can be nice to get an auto ping whenever someone's taken off. And then on a more advanced level, you could also try to pay attention to where all the bounty contracts are in your area. You could even leave some of them pinged all the time. That way, if you become hunted, you can check the map again and see where the contract disappeared. That only works if you're not on a contract though, but also if you have them pinged, you could see one of them disappear that way, and it's great to know what direction your hunters are coming from. You can immediately watch that way and make the hunters the hunted. It is a little overboard to be trying to memorize contract locations wherever you go, but if all the typical positioning and awareness stuff has become second nature to you, it's another thing you could keep in mind. There was another awareness thing I think I could have explained better last time with the free loadout crates that drop. They're much more than free stuff. They can teach you a lot about the state of the game. No doubt most people know this, nothing new, but very useful. If you're watching the sky around the time of the drop, especially the first one at 15 seconds before the first circle finishes closing, you can often see several of the crate drops around the map and how clustered together they are, which will give you a rough idea of how many teams are within that 200-ish meter radius of those loadouts. And most importantly, you should watch your loadout. If it dropped alone, then you know you're pretty safe to grab it. No other teams will have their loadout icon drawing them towards it to fight over it. That means it could also be smart, if you don't want to fight over your drop, to get into a more deserted area when the loadout is about to drop. Then it'll almost certainly be alone and easy to grab. But if you're somewhere populated and it gets dropped in a big pile, well, be careful. Take your time to grab that. Be ready for people to be watching it or dropping in on it. If the crate is still there, that means the team is still alive. Maybe someone in the gulag who could drop in on it at any time, so be aware of that danger. Only when you see a crate deflate and go away is that team fully knocked out of the game. Speaking of gulag, I do still see confusion about if you keep your loadout perks on death. Well, easy way to remember, if you gulag 1v1 and get released, then you haven't truly died yet. You were only taken prisoner. So you do keep your 3 perks from whatever loadout you most recently picked up. Grab some guns off a body, and you're good to go. But if you're fully dead and spectating and then get respawned, you'll come in with no perks, and you'll want to collect another loadout if possible. Now for a random weapon fact I've never seen mentioned anywhere about the 5mm green laser, the one for hipfire, not the tac laser. So this is what you'd run on any Akimbo pistol build, for example, and it looks like it's visible and giving you away, because it's supposed to, and it usually does. But with Akimbo, with everything I've tried, it actually can't be seen in third person. It seems to be bugged with Akimbo to be completely invisible. So it was already the attachment you would want for Akimbo, but it actually seems to have no downside at all. The Akimbo pistol meta has died down after the snake shot and Renetti nerfs, but that is a pretty crazy thing to keep in mind if you still feel like rocking pistols. No need to be worried about giving away your position. I don't think I'll dedicate much time to some of the joke strats I have saved here. Some of them really not that useful, like infinitely reviving someone in a sniper battle, where you just choose to not armor up, because plates would be the only thing you're wasting in a fight like that. This can be situationally useful, and not just when you're on some campy roof. We've used a hill or a wall a couple times. As long as you're far enough away and safe where you get downed, it can be funny, and when you finally get it down, you can use that to push or finish that person if they're not in as safe a spot. But you are vulnerable to airstrikes. A good team might call one of those in if you're being a revive cycling scumbag. Yeah, I won't fill a video with asshole-ish joke strats, although I do have to mention the operator sprays, very old thing that became popular for trolling, and for good reason. They shouldn't fool anyone for long, but if you turn a corner going up some stairs and aren't expecting it, it can spook even a veteran player into maybe shooting and giving up their location. Just don't spray it on a window that you're hiding behind, like this dude. Oh, what the hell? It scared me. Oh, there's a guy in there! What the hell? I just wanted to show you the paint on the window. There's actually a guy in there. Alright, that's the wife. Would have never seen him otherwise. Thanks, man. And it probably ain't gonna work in the gulag either, on this angled wall. I remember this was a popular Reddit clip at the time where someone walked right up to a spray in that spot and got executed by a guy hiding nearby. And then I ran into someone trying to do exactly that. Yeah, sorry man, you need to be in a rather low lobby for that to work. As for some more general strategy, like a good order of contracts, the most wanteds and supply runs have been added since last time. The most wanted I rarely bother with, only if my whole team's dead, or if you want to get paid to camp in the airport tower instead of playing the game, I guess. Supply runs, on the other hand, are pretty massive. I see some people say that they're trash, and I do not understand that. They can be great for quickly respawning a single teammate for free if you find yourself redeploying and poor, but what I think they're really good for is the early game. A lot of my games now start by diving for a helicopter, which is no secret, plenty of people do that. You just have to be the best among them. If you're confident in your diving abilities, you have a good feel for the distance to never waste any time parachuting, then you can be the first pretty consistently, and often get some juicy blade kills.
Oh, someone's gonna beat you. You got him.
Nobody beats me. Easy. Nice Glock fight these guys are having here. Oops. Be a shame if I were a toxic, horrible person. Oh, it's gonna be close. Oh no!
Make it. Oh my god. Nice.
Okay. I'm confident in my record for being the first to the helicopter, but you could use a ground vehicle. Then the goal is to do 2 quick supply runs, because they take less than a minute. And yeah, they only give 1,000 base cash, like a Recon, but then everyone gets a cheap item too. Like the self-revive is totally free, so now it's more like it gives you 5,500 cash. And that's with no bonus being built up too. That's amazing for how fast it is. So you could grab a second one, and this time maybe buy an armor and ammo box to fill the team up on those, which basically entirely cuts out the need for looting. And now you've built up your contract bonus, so you could grab a search or a bounty for massive cash, and start getting some satchels. Like here, the first circle just started closing, and we have our self-revives, max armor, ammo, and 35k, without needing to even see another player. And at tier 4 contract bonus, we can grab a bounty and be richer than we'd ever need to be. Supply runs are garbage, my ass. They don't even shoot up a flare like a Recon. You just need to go to a buy station that'll be roughly 500 meters away from the contract. I found this to be incredibly repeatable. It is true that driving around is dangerous. You're a big red thing on the map, just asking to get blown up, but it's early game. People may be more focused on getting their gear together, less likely to have the tools to blow you up. I think supply runs are game-changing, and I'm surprised not everyone thinks so. Since I mentioned getting blown up in vehicles, I should also bring up the trophy system, something I doubt anybody needs to be told about, but I didn't mention it last time because they weren't buffed yet. That's really how long it's been. It was back on April 29th, I think? Well yeah, if you somehow missed the memo, they were buffed to last 10 minutes. Same with the shield turret and deployable cover, I think, but less relevant for those. Yeah, that made trophies incredible, and they're pretty common, so pick them up, use them in fights preemptively, and if you want to drive anywhere in the mid-game, they're invaluable. Try to give it as much line of sight as possible on the top of the vehicle so you don't get nuked by C4s and rockets. Quick mention for another thing that changed more recently in Season 4, just because I've seen some confusion about quick fix. It used to be that downing someone often started your health regen immediately, for no apparent reason other than maybe it was some kind of anti-third-partying feature. But that was deemed a bug and finally fixed in Season 4. So now you do have to use quick fix to get that effect, which isn't bad, but I'd say the blue perk slot is far too valuable for that. Now, what hasn't changed, my general approach to killstreaks. Whenever we have the money to spare, I'll always call in UAVs from the buy station. They can be incredible early game when fewer people have their ghost on, and it can definitely help you not get ambushed while you're buying stuff. Comes in handy all the time, but I generally don't hold on to a UAV. They often don't help much in the late game when there's so much ghost, and the heartbeat can cover 50 meters around you anyway. So I almost always carry a cluster. They're excellent area denial to prevent a res or to push people out of cover, and in a late game circle, that might be their only cover. Also remember, you can use the little laser designator to sprint at 100% speed. Same with the airstrike marker, which can be handy if both your weapons are slow. Speaking of weapons, I do love trying to make everything a transition. Let's talk more about classes and loadout related tips. So much has changed over time. One big shift was the move from cold-blooded to EOD. At launch, with all the thermals, cold-blooded was a no-brainer. It even counters high alert if anyone was messing around with that. I'd rarely get hit by an explosive back then, and if I did, armor was more than enough protection. But with so much cold-blooded usage, thermals started to fade away, while C4 and launchers were on the rise. And then they buffed the RPG for some stupid reason, while calling it a nerf. And that was the major turning point where tons of people made the change, myself included, and since then it's been all EOD. The C4 and Heartbeat is still the go-to equipment for me, all around very useful stuff. The C4 for vehicle defense, instant controlled explosions around corners, fun with trapping vehicles and drones of course, and then the Heartbeat, always good to have at least one, with maybe other people on the squad running smokes or stuns of some kind, because 1 or 2 Heartbeats is enough. The new spotter scope can be fun. It's awesome how clear the thermal looks. I had forgotten how it cuts through all the fog, but I've never found it to be actually all that useful. The tagging function is super finicky, maybe worth carrying in trios or quads, but I don't know, you can usually spot people without it. As far as weapons go, I think last time I was a big M4 fan, and I still fall back to it as a reliable, all-around weapon that I'm super comfortable with, although the M4 does get boring. If you want to try other stuff, you have tons of options I can skim through. I went through phases trying different things. First, the FAL I thought was tons of fun, even back before this recent buff. Then I moved on to the M13, thought it was an absolute laser, felt crazy strong. I spent some time with the longest barrel and with the integrated suppressor build. Maybe it was a bit of a placebo, but I think I did prefer the long version. Then one day it just stopped working for me. I don't know. For both it and the FAL, I feel like a god with them in Plunder, but then sometimes suck with them in BR. Maybe because I gotta chill out and go for headshots. I think the best part of the M13 is the accuracy, allowing you to aim for the head more confidently, and the FAL takes a trigger finger and a certain level of comfort with a semi-auto, which may not be what you want in an intense final circle, but it is incredibly strong, especially with the recent buff, which we'll get to. Then it was on to the Grau era, because that was the meta everyone was on, impossible to ignore it, and I was never even a big Grau fan, half because it was boring to be the same as everyone else, but also because I often still had a sniper or an anti-vehicle launcher as a secondary, which is not what you want with a long-range Grau build. Your close-range game is gonna be rough. Grau SMG is what you gotta do if you want to be like everyone else. And the Grau is still fine after the range nerf, but less of an obvious choice now. Finally, the Bruen is a big name, finally starting to really catch on as people look for the Grau replacement, and I am currently in a bit of a Bruen phase. Tons of fun. Final mention, I guess I'll bring up the Kilo. I know it is Grau-like in many ways, but I feel like something about the Kilo must be a console thing, because I know lots of people liked it in multiplayer too, but I have always absolutely hated it. It has such a weird, annoying feeling where the visual recoil almost seems to dip down and to the left. The actual recoil plot looks fine, but I've never had a good feel for controlling the Kilo, but if you like it, more power to you. There are plenty more off-meta picks you could totally have success with, but no point in me listing off every gun, so I'll go through what I have as my current loadouts. I still have one overkill class, which is Sniper M4. If I want to snipe, then I want both weapons right away. I'm not going to pick up one at a time. All my other classes are Ghost, and of course I'll want to pick one of those up as a second loadout. So as I was saying before, I still love the old M4 as a general pick for any range, and something about the M4's recoil, I sometimes see people point out it drifting to the right pretty hard. The M4 plots can sometimes look like a horizontal mess compared to other low recoil options, but that's kind of overlooking how the M4 is almost perfectly vertical for the first 15 bullets or so, and then it cuts out to the right. It doesn't drift right the whole time. And the first dozen shots are pretty important. If you hit those, someone's dead. So I still have a great feel for the M4. Something like the Grau, which is obviously great too, feels a bit weirder for me. It clearly cuts to the left at first a tiny bit, before drifting back to the right, in a very stretched out C shape. Anyway, this is a sniper class, and with the M4, the fire rate doesn't suck, so it can hold its own at close range. And I'm still an HDR fan too. I used to always go VLK or Merc Thermal, because they're great to not have the glint, and I'd still recommend that for certain playstyles. Lately, I've given up on that to just have fun with the high zoom stuff. I figure sniping is really more of a luxury than a necessity. It's fun, and I really only go with this class in bigger squads where we can easily afford the extra loadout every time. In solos or duos, I'm just gonna pick a Ghost class. I never feel like I truly need a sniper. Another way of thinking would be to run a closer range, faster aiming scout sniper type of AX50 build, which is totally viable for getting those headshots. These days, I just stick to the easy AR classes most of the time, and pull out the max range HDR for fun. For the rest of these ghost classes, I've been messing around with the meme setup of Foul. I have a long-range Foul and a short-range Foul that I can pick up as primary and secondary. This, of course, being thanks to the buff, the new close-range damage shelf. It's no secret, this thing has the best up-close time to kill in the game by a large margin if you hit the fire rate cap. You can feel the power, and it can hold its own at any range. There is a fair bit of bounce, but you don't have to be hitting the fire rate cap. So why run anything else, right? Yeah, not really. This is not actually practical to have two guns that do the same thing, but very funny. Got my close range one with sleight of hand instead of the 30 round mag, tons of ADS speed attachments, but no tac laser. I think that's a great attachment for long range weapon builds to help save the ADS speed like on this other Foul, but I'd prefer to not have it for a close quarters weapon like an SMG that already aims quickly, because indoors is where the green laser is going to be easy to see, and it makes me never want to be pre-aiming while walking around, which I find hurts me more than it helps, but up to you. I've definitely spotted people's green lasers before, and it's gotten them killed. Oh well, double Foul is more of a joke setup. I've also got this Bruen down here. It's getting some hype for a reason. Incredibly accurate, and plenty mobile thanks to the 60 round mag downsize. It seems counterintuitive to want a smaller mag in Warzone, but I promise you do, even if just for the reload speed. Plus you do want all the mobility and handling too. I'm always a big VLK fanboy for the extra zoom while keeping the ADS impact minimal, but you could also go red dot for any of this stuff if you prefer. I haven't been going into much detail on any of the attachments I've been showing because we'd be here for ages. It's generally a lot of the same. Big mag, VLK, longest barrel, mono suppressor, although in some cases I do find the in-between long barrel to be the better trade-off, like Corvus over Grenadier for the M4, or for some weapons, maybe the tactical suppressor over monolithic, but never lightweight, because that tanks your range. And it isn't just about damage range. Remember, bullet velocity often secretly accompanies range, and I do love me some max bullet velocity in Warzone. That's why for something like the HDR, even after it got a buff that basically gave it infinite damage range, that doesn't mean it's time to go with the lightweight suppressor, because it's really all about maxing velocity. And yes, I do run a suppressor on absolutely everything. I see some people say that they don't need it because they're just so good that they don't care if people know where they are and are drawn towards you. Yeah, okay, that's great, and it might work for you, sure, but I don't see any reason to do that, because it's not just about letting other teams know where you're fighting and bringing on that risk of getting third-partied, it's also about the half second of confusion for the people that you're shooting at. If you're doing a lot of hunting and you get the drop on people, it's great if they don't immediately know where they're getting shot from and how to best take cover. Yeah, there are directional damage indicators, but they aren't as easy to read quickly or as precisely as a red dot on the map accompanied by a loud sound. I think I'll be keeping suppressors on everything. As I said though, I didn't want to spend tons of time on every attachment decision. If you want more data and science on weapon attachments than I could possibly provide, there is the excellent website you may know about, COD Gun Data. You can come here to build your weapon and see all the little impacts of everything. The creator recently said he was still working on how the ADS scaling works, since it isn't like everything just adds together. There's a bit of diminishing returns and more complexity when combining attachments, but you can go check out that guy's socials and everything. This is a top tier loadout building resource for sure. The final class I have on here, I should mention, gotta have an ammo class with fully loaded for those late game emergency situations. It's just my M4 where I got rid of the optic, since I assume I'm only gonna be picking this from the Circle 5 free loadout, so things are getting pretty close range, and the M4 iron sights are not bad. In fact, here's a comparison of all the common M4 blueprints you might have. I don't have anything from the shop, but these were all earnable at one point, or from buying a game. The foresights are all the same, because that's part of the Corvus barrel, but you can actually see the default M4 might be the cleanest, unless you prefer the bigger but bulkier circle of the Purist and XRK. Anyway, I'm mainly using that Bruen class right now, and sometimes the Foul. You'll notice I don't even have an SMG class. I could replace the JOKR with one, and it would just be an MP5, monolithic integral, Merc, and 45 rounds being the three obvious choices there. But most of the time these days, I don't even bother with the double loadout. I just pick the Ghost class, and what I've been doing more often is scavenging my second gun from a kill, because it's kind of fun, and since everyone we play seems to be an epic MLG gamer with an esports skin and perfect meta guns, I'll just take one of those excellently kitted SMGs or snipers off a body. Depending on where the circle's going, I can choose what range I want to cover. And another thing I don't want to bother to put on a class, but I will totally use if I find one, is the Riot Shield. It is a very interesting choice that I'm glad is not more common. It does have a ton of potential. It provides a massive nuisance for people on your back. It can help with revives. You can use it to step out and spot people from just about complete safety, to ping them before you challenge them. It opens up a whole new, weird way to play, but I'm not gonna bother running overkill for it. Just a fun thing to pick up. And if I never find a gun that I want, well, having that launcher on there provides great utility too. I used to say one guy on the team having a Pila for the ease of locking onto stuff is amazing for protection against vehicles, and I still agree with that, but the Pila is boring. So I've been having more fun experimenting with the JOKR and Strela. Screw the RPG, I can't believe that disgusting buff it got. It's stupid. I'll use it if I find it, sure, but I refuse to put it on a Warzone class. Anyway, with the JOKR, of course not practical for vehicle defense, but sometimes people just don't get out of vehicles after an hour of the missile incoming warning. That's always hilarious. And you can bomb unsuspecting snipers without any warning. That's a good time. And then the Strela is pretty insane. That's the main one I carry now. I always knew it would be great, but held out on using it for some reason, because all it is the most deadly sniper in the game. It can reach out and touch any vehicle with no warning, no time to react, like a C4 from afar. And it does make me feel like a complete asshole, because what a terrible way to die, but at least it's not being used for fighting players directly. I'm still ranking the RPG at the bottom of the honor board. This is all about vehicles, and it does take some practice, so it's on you to have a trophy on that car if you're gonna drive around mid-game and expect to live. Yeah, the Strela is ridiculous. You could pull off similar stuff with the crossbow ammo types, or the explosive Rytech I know is crazy too, but those are primaries. I'm not gonna bother devoting a weapon slot to that. The Strela is convenient and hilarious. The downside being, of course, you can miss, but hopefully you have some multiplayer experience with it. Once you get the hang of it, it's insanely strong. Well, that's the lowdown on how my loadouts have changed, and plenty of extra thoughts about things. I mostly just pick a ghost class and maybe pick a second one later on, or don't bother and scavenge a decent SMG for the end game. So let's end with a quick look at stats as promised, and some wrap-up Warzone thoughts. I never play for stats, I don't care. I think it'd just be frustrating to play for a number that nobody cares about instead of just having fun. Looking at COD Tracker here, because it gives a lot more information than in-game. You can look me up if you want, if you think I'm faking it. I haven't played a crazy amount of BR, about 300 matches, and I guess I'm pretty proud of that 23% win rate. Win in 1 in 4 games, hell yeah. I don't really play solos, so that helps. But plenty of duos, where the average win rate would be 1 to 2%, so that's pretty darn good. Especially because who knows how many of those games were dedicated to hunting for challenges and testing stuff. Like Plunder's where I try to test the most stuff, to grind all the missions, ribbons, some AFK Battle Pass testing. Yeah, the Plunder stats are a throwaway. I've maybe only ever played 10 serious games of Plunder. Oh well, pretty happy with keeping that up that high, in spite of how tough the competition has been as of late. Yeah, that's the thing. You'll notice it's not like I have that many kills at an average of 4 per game. We used to get higher kill games, but that's rarer these days, because when everyone seems to be a cracked out purple Grau SMG TTV guy, the way to win is to be a bit of a bitch. I'm not that great. The odds are not in my favor to win 10 consecutive fights, so I often like to play more stealthy. Not just camping in an attic somewhere, but, you know, rotating around the borders of the map, taking the advantageous sides of the circles, all the best hills, often not shooting at people when you see them, let them pass. Which I guess is pretty standard BR strategy, but yeah, I don't play for high kill games. I think my favorite part of the game is getting to navigate through an intense endgame situation. So if I gotta creep around in a forest to get to that point more often, I'm down. And yeah, it's a shame about how the game feels these days. I can't say I play much Warzone anymore just for fun. I think Warzone is a great BR. They did a lot of things right, but I'm truly not even that big of a BR fan. I'm not that competitive. I'm usually drawn to the chill, grind type of stuff. It can be fun to hop on with friends now and then, but the strength of the skill matching is truly exhausting. It's annoying to bring it up, and it's been a long time since I mentioned it, but it really is a killer. I actually have a bigger problem with it being in regular multiplayer, because that should be such a casual environment. Everything about the maps and the guns and the rules are not competitive at all. It's already designed for players of any skill to be able to succeed, so to throw that matchmaking in there on top is just stupid to me. It must just be what appeases the demo that makes them the most money from shop purchases. I don't know. It seems awful and short-sighted from a gameplay perspective for any long-term COD player, whether you're good or bad. bad. It ruins the feeling of improvement, it ruins partying up with a friend who's better. At least Warzone feels a bit more inherently competitive in nature than multiplayer, so I can understand the need for some separation. I don't want to be dunking on people who can't move and aim at the same time. The key is variety, rather than the same curated experience every time, where the game decides how hard your match should be, instead of feeling like you're proving your skills against a random selection of the player base, to really get a feeling for how you stack up. It feels very pointless to be smashing your head against the wall of everyone in the match being a god. There is no relaxing allowed, there is no feeling of improvement, you have no gauge of how well you're really doing. It creates this huge divide. You might be proud of something and post a clip of your awesome play, only to get everyone pointing out what a bot lobby you're in. We're all playing a different game. I know I'm definitely not at the top either, and if you get better, you get punished, and then end up doing worse. The rubber banding back and forth between skill levels is boring and tiring, since it isn't actual ranked play. I can't say I'm a legendary Eagle Warzone player and be proud of that, and want to shoot for higher. There's nothing to show for the time I've invested in getting better, except maybe the privilege of getting to run into more hackers. Yeah, there's that too. I don't see a ton of it, to be fair, maybe because I'm not quite at that level where I'd run into it more, or I'm also pretty slow to call hacks, but of course I've seen my fair share of rather suspicious deaths. You let me know what you think of this one, getting predictively headshotted running around a corner at a weird level too, then insta-dinked again when going in for that revive. That one could just be a good shot, but then we did actually escape and sneak up there and end up killing them when they got pushed inside by another team's airstrike, but not before getting instantly sniper dinked again when they ran inside. Yeah, I don't know. So that's a growing problem too. I've definitely slowed down with the Warzone interest. I'm sure they've got plenty planned for the map, for events, for addressing problems, obviously. It isn't like they want hackers to be chasing people away. Who knows when they can manage something for that. And then whatever plans for new maps coming with the new game or whatever. But as I said, it's not like I was ever that into BR in the first place. I just think Warzone did a pretty good job of it on the design side. But just like with the rest of Modern Warfare, a few core decisions have really been killing the fun that could have been. Well, this has been quite the long video. That's all for now, whatever that was. Just a big mixed bag of Warzone pointers and loadout updates and thoughts after a few months of playing and meta evolving. Hope you got something out of it. I think I'll return to Warzone when I need XP again next season. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.